Well, here I am at my little table in front of this miserable cafe. If you wish to go in, there's the door. Put the money in the box. But I will have a word with you before you do. There's a cantina down the street. They serve rum. I'm a devout Muslim, but I would rather see you go there than to go in and hear this imbecile. Well, I can't stop you. Go in if you must. So if you're a local from Vancouver, or if you just nipped in from Beta Carinae, welcome back to the Psychedelic Cafe. Now, I started growing mushrooms about 8 months ago, and with the help of Philly Golden Teacher on the YouTube, I learned how to use a 12-quart Sterilite like that to grow fast-growing mushrooms. And it works pretty well. If a mushroom pins up in a week or 10 days and fruits in another week or 10 days, you can use this technique and it works great and it's cheap and it's easy. However, if you want to grow a mushroom that's a slow-growing mushroom, let's say after it pins up it takes a month or two or 2 months to get its mojo, then you have a couple of problems. You have the problem of keeping it aerated. You have the problem of it drying out, and if you fan a tray like that, you're risking contamination. So I came up with a design that looks like this. And this is a self-contained, semi-automatic mushroom habitat for slow-growing mushrooms. Now I'll go into what it's really made out of in greater detail. So why don't we go in the kitchen and take a look. Okay, this is the Mark I semi-automatic slow-growing mushroom chamber. So let me break it down for you. The jar here is a 304-ounce jar. It's a canister, food canister, got from Fred Meyer supermarket. It's glass, and I made a lid for it out of a half-inch thick piece of plexiglass. Now I have machine shop capability, so I was able to machine a groove in the top here that the jar fits up into, and then there's 3 clamps that hold the lid down onto the jar. Now, if you didn't have machine shop, you could get Tap Plastics to cut you a round shape of plexi for a lid, and that would be probably the way to do it. It needs to be exactly the same size. If you're going to do a round lid, it needs to be the same size as the lip of the jar, because you're going to run a strip of Micropore tape around the perimeter in order to seal it. This one doesn't do it that way. It's got a closed cell foam gasket up in the groove. But anyway, let's move on. We'll look at other features in a minute. The next major feature is this timer here. It's an interval timer. It's called a repeat cycle timer. Came off of Amazon for $12 or something. And then over here is a cheap aquarium air pump. It's rated for 1.8 liters a minute, and it produces at least a liter of air a minute it can move. So you can adjust how much air gets into your chamber. Now the one thing about it is that it's not glued on, it just is press fit. Here's the pump. It has a half-inch PVC coupler glued onto the intake of the pump, and then a piece of stub pipe put in there. And the way the system works is that, let me show you up on top here. Okay. There's a down pipe. You see the down pipe here. the downpipe reaches almost down to the mycelial layer, and air is pulled up through that pipe and blown out through the pump. The only way air gets in is through a series of holes in the top of the plexi here. There's a row of holes here. And those are covered with micropore tape. So any air going in is filtered. And that's a big advantage for preventing contamination. The PVC is a Home Depot item. The pump I got off eBay for $15 or $16. So now let's look at the last major feature here. Now here's an important feature down here. There's a foam rubber injection port adhesive dot here. And that covers a 1/4 inch hole in the glass. Now the hole was put in there with one of these cheap diamond hole drills. And you get a whole set of them on eBay for like $10. So that covers the hole. And what that allows you to do is to inject water as the mycelium needs it on the fly. You don't have to open the top to put added water in. And what happens as the mushrooms mature, the cake starts to shrink and it pulls away from the glass and it pulls away uniformly all the way around. So you can inject an ounce or two of water right in one spot and it'll flow all the way around the mycelial block. And so that's one of the big things about being able to keep it rehydrated without really opening it up and opening yourself to contamination. Now here's a close-up shot of the 4-gallon aquarium style. This is the Mark II semi-automatic slow-growing mushroom chamber. So here's the aquarium. Here's the 1/2 inch plexi. And this is one continuous strip of, I guess it's 1 inch Microppose. And it goes all the way around. And that, because the plexi lid is exactly the same size as the aquarium perimeter, it sticks there, it doesn't buckle, and it works beautifully. So that thing's really well sealed. And what I'm finding is that the Micropose works. It breathes, it does everything it's supposed to do. Now, if you're going to have tap plastics or somebody make your piece of plexi, the square shape might be the way to go. And then they can just cut it, cut it to that rectangle, and then you can just directly use it. You got to put a few holes in the top, but that's something you could do with a drill. And a hot glue gun can secure your down tube. But this design will work with any glass container of sufficient size. And finally, here's a shot of the side of the aquarium. There's the Micropose injection port. And here's the water line in there. I put about 1 ounce of water in here a couple days ago, and there's still a 1/4 inch of water in there. And again, the cake starts to shrink away from the glass, so it'll go all the way around. So you can just have one hole and put in all the water you need. So now you've seen both of the semi-automatic mushroom habitats. Now the canister was about 2 1/4 gallons, and the lid had about 10 1/2 inch diameter holes over which was put the micropore tape. And that one stayed clean for 2 months or more. I got one little spot of mold, but I was putting a long-stemmed water feeding tube down in there from time to time, so I had to go inside of the chamber. And I got a little tiny spot of mold, and I killed it with some hydrogen peroxide, and it was not an issue. The second chamber is roughly the area of a 12-quart Sterilite. It's got about 15 holes in the lid, although I may add a few more. And it's had the pump the whole time. The pump, I keep raising up the amount of air as it goes along, and it's now running about a 50% duty cycle. And that means it's turning over the whole volume inside there about every hour. And it's just growing marvelously, and I expect it to go the distance. So this has solved my problem for the slow-growing mushrooms. And I hope you can find a aquarium at the thrift store or something like that. This whole thing could be done for $50. The plexi would probably be the most expensive part. So, subscribe to the channel, and you will find out when the next cup of psychedelic coffee is to be delivered at the Psychedelic Cafe. Thank you.